I don't know if I said earlier that we are marching into March, or we have marched into March, and it is the third month into this year, and that's just sort of unbelievable that we've come so far so fast. And I also have been aware of the fact that it's been 1 year that we've been dealing now with COVID. It's been 1 year that we've been home on lockdown. It's been 1 year since we've been apparently separate, not being able to see people, not being able to go about life the way that we'd always known life. And it didn't seem that long, but it has been that long. It has been a long time. It has been a different kind of year. It has been a year full of adjustments and change and learning new things and learning new skills and learning to be a different way. And so we've come through a year, and I think that's something for us to really applaud, the fact that we have made it through this year. We've come through this year, and without looking at the downsides, just looking at the upside of it, is that we've walked through and we continue to walk through this time, knowing that we've never walked alone. We aren't walking alone, that there's always that power and that presence within us that is always guiding us, always directing us, always showing us the way. And so this month we are moving into a different topic, a different theme for the month. And the theme for this month is being in service. Being in service. Being in service. We're going to be talking about service all month. And my theme, my topic for today is don't do it. Just don't do it. And and I say that because we're talking about being in service, and service is helping, being of help, helping others, of doing something for someone, or helping out in some way. And when we can do that, the way to do that is from our hearts, from just giving of ourselves. Ernest Holmes says that we should we should give of ourselves in love and in service, in a spirit of generosity and good fellowship. And he says to give of yourself, we have to do that in love. We have to do that in good fellowship. And that when we refuse to give, we refuse to receive, because everything moves in circles. Everything moves in circles. And so service is about giving. Service is about being. Service is about being in unity, in oneness. Service is about love. And that's what we've been talking about all years: love, love, love. And so I'm inviting you to learn to be in service, to learn to be in service. And you know, when we are, the first thing we have to do is to set our intention to serve. And when we set our intention to serve, we have to also look at our motivation for serving. What is our motivation for serving? And this is when we get to the don't do it part. If you are moved to serve because of some benefit that it does for you, something that you will get in return, or because it's expected of you, or it's because you feel that it's a should that you serve, or you feel that it's a responsibility or it's a duty, don't do it. Don't do it. That's not a reason for doing service. And I specifically said doing service because I've heard people refer to service as doing service. I have to do service this week. I have to do service to get my hours. I have to do service to do whatever the case may be. Uh, and service is not about doing. It's not about doing. It's about being. It's about allowing. It's about giving. It's about openness. It's about oneness. It's about unity. It's about an open heart, because that is the place from which service comes, from an open heart, from an open heart. And and someone said that the purpose of service is to allow God to reach others through our hands, to allow God to reach others through our hands, to allow God to reach others through our hands. I really like that. That is what service is all about. It's allowing God to reach others through our hands, because God can only work through us. God can only work through us. And to the degree that we are open, then God works through each of us individually. And when there's no opening, then God just keeps moving to the next opening, to the next opening, because God is always seeking expression. And so when we're looking at service, we want to make sure that we are that open place and space through which God can serve, through which God can reach others, through which God can really do what God wants to do. And that's just be expressing, be that love that's always expressing. What I got a chance to look at service this past couple of weeks has been, I went the time that I went for my vaccine. I went for the first vaccine a couple of weeks, well, 3 weeks ago. And the thing that I was really struck by was how nice the people were. Oh, there were so many volunteers there, and they were so wonderful that it really, I don't know why I was so surprised by it, but to a person, they were just wonderful. You would have thought that they were each my good friends, and I didn't know them, but they were all just so friendly, so helpful, and so willing to be there, and so willing to be of service. And I didn't term it service at the time. The first time I went, I was just struck by how nice they were, and how loving they were, and how kind they were. And that stayed with me for a couple of weeks. And then as I started to think about our theme for the month, service, being in service, I went back for the second vaccine this past week. And I experienced the same thing with the same group of people, I guess, or different people, but at the same place. But they were all volunteers, and they were all just so willing, so helpful, so loving, so kind, so generous. Of the generosity of spirit was the thing that really struck me. And that's what made me start to think about being in service. They were really being in service. They weren't doing service, they were being in service. And that's what we have to look at for ourselves. Just how can I be in service? And first of all, as I said, we have to set our intention to serve. Of course, setting our intention to serve. How can I help? That's the thing we always want to know. How can I help? How can I help? What can I do? That's the question that we ask. What can I do? How can I help? That's a normal question that comes up. How can I be of service? There are three aspects to serving: being of service, being in service, and being service. Those are three different mindsets: being of service, being in service, and being service. And so as we look at being of service, that's the question that comes up first. That's the mindset we're in first. What can I do? What needs to be done? How can I serve? And so we're looking at what can be done, but we're looking at how we can do that from a place of open heartedness. And again, as I said, if it's from a place of what am I going to get out of this? Am I going to get credit for this? Am I doing this because this is my responsibility, or because I should do it? If you have on that should blanket, then that's not the time to serve. That's not the time to serve. The time to serve is when you can take that should blanket off, and you're just serving from a place of open heartedness, and from a place of wanting to just allow God to use you. Because, we sing that song every week, use me. And that's what service is all about. When we are saying, use me, oh Lord, then we are opening our hearts for God to use us for service, for God to use us to reach others. And so that's what we are looking at initially when we want to know, how can I be of service? We want to know, what can I do? What can I offer? Here I am. Here I am, Lord. Use me. That's what we're really saying. And so we go through that part of assessment, assessing what needs to be done, assessing what I can do, is assessing what I can offer. That's being of service, and that's a good first step. That's a necessary first step, so that we don't just come in and just start doing stuff. That's what people do sometimes when they are thinking they're serving, is come in and start doing things. We just want to come in and just be open, assessing what needs to be done, what needs to be done. And then when we actually start to bring ourselves to it, when we start to bring our skills to it, when we start to bring our talent to it, when we start to bring our resources, then that's when we're beginning to be in service. That's when we're beginning to be in service, because we're beginning to do the things, but we're doing it from our abilities, from our talents, from our resources. We're in that place of givingness. We're in that place of givingness. And again, with the people that I saw out at the vaccine location, they were being in service, whether it was directing traffic, or whether it was checking ID, or whether they were telling you, giving directions about turning your lights off, or turning your engine on, or whatever the case may be. They were being in service. They were doing those things. They were doing those things that they were guided to do. They were doing those things that they knew were a part of what needed to be done with them being in service. And so what that's the other part that we have to get to when we are looking at service. I've had the opportunity also, in addition to being at the vaccine sites, seeing people in service, just seeing our own community in service. As we have been going through this process of sorting and packing and releasing things and trashing and all the things that we've been going through at the center for the last few weeks, just having people who have been showing up to volunteer and to really help us out and really coming in. First thing is, how can I be of service? Looking at what needs to be done, doing an assessment, and then actually starting to bring their talents, bring their resources, bring their abilities, along with their willingness to serve. Being in service is what I've just been watching our community do. Some people in our community stepping up just to see how they could be in service. And that's what's been so beautiful about this time, is just observing the being part of it. Observing the being part of it. Not just doing, but actually being in service, actually bringing themselves to it, actually bringing, this is how we serve, by bringing ourselves to it. And sometimes, being in service means that it could just be a look or a smile, or even with a mask on, you can tell when somebody's smiling because you can see it in their eyes. But helping, if there's something that needs to be done, if someone's lifting something and it's too heavy, just helping to move something, or whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be, there's so many ways for us to be in service. But the big part of that, as I said, is being in service. And then the final part of that is being service itself. Being service itself. When we bring all of who we are, and when we lose ourselves in the act of service, when we lose ourselves in the act of helping, when we lose ourselves and just open up and just allow that divine intelligence within us to just start to operate in and through and as us, that's when we are being service itself. And I have seen this transition and this transformation with people that I've been serving with over these last few weeks at the center. I've just seen the transition from being of service, assessing what needs to be done, being in service, starting to actually do things, to being service itself. There's a dissolving, if you will, of the personality of the personality into the whole, into the unification with the divine, into the all that is, that begin. And you can see when spirit starts to work through the people who are working, the spirit starts to move through them, and people just start to get into a rhythm. They get into a rhythm, and they lose their individuality, that individual personality, and they just start to be into the rhythm. And you just, and just being able to observe, spirit working, to be able to observe how that divine intelligence knows exactly what needs to be done. It knows exactly what needs to be said, knows exactly how it needs to be done, knows exactly how to do everything. How to do everything. That's what being service is all about. That's what being service itself is all about. And and as I said, once we set the intention to serve, then spirit knows exactly whether it's time for you to be of service, whether it's time for you to be in service, whether it's time for you to just be service. Because it just depends on what the need is at the time. It depends on so many factors that we aren't even aware of. And the only thing that we have to be aware of is our own availability, our own willingness, our own uniqueness, and our willingness to be used. Our willingness to be used. Ernest Holmes says that there's a powerful good in the universe that can use us. There's a power, well, he says that there's a powerful good in the universe that we can use, and we can use it. And we know that there's a powerful good in the universe that can use us. And when we come to the place where we are willing to allow that power to use us, it is amazing the kinds of things that we can do. It is amazing the kinds of things that can be accomplished. It is amazing the kinds of ways that we can do things that are for the highest good of everybody. that moves us back into that place of oneness, because service is all about oneness. You know, when you think about with the pandemic and the vaccine and things that are going on, when you think about the fact that the two pharmaceutical giants, Johnson and Johnson and Merck, are now working together. Merck has come to work with Johnson and Johnson to help distribute their vaccine. They've been rivals forever. They've always been arch rivals. And now they're working together to get this vaccine out. Merck is working with Johnson and Johnson to get Johnson and Johnson's vaccine out to the masses, out to the people, out to humankind. This is what service is all about. This is what unity is all about. This is what oneness is all about. When we can work together for the common good, when we can work together for the highest good of all concerned, then that's when we are allowing God to reach others through our hands. And who would think that corporations would be doing this? We think about individuals doing this. We think about people doing it, but you know, there are people who operate corporations. There are people who run the corporations. And so the people who are running the corporations are saying, yes, let's work together. Let's work together so that we can allow God to use us. And they may not have used that terminology, but so that we can allow God to use us for the greater good, for the highest good. This is what unity looks like. And so we've been talking about unity throughout these last few months, particularly since the pandemic and since the election and all the other things that have been so divisive. We've talked about unity being in the midst of everything, unity being something that is really necessary in order for all of us to succeed, in order for all of us to survive. And this is a perfect example of that. In order for all of us to survive, in order for all of us to move forward, and we have to all move forward together. And we do this through the service that we are willing to allow to be provided through us. We do this through our willings to be open, to allow God to use us however God needs to use us. Because our purpose for being here is to be delivery systems for God's love. Our purpose for being here is to be a vehicle through which God can work. And God works through us through the service that we give. Through the service that we give. So when we can release our personality stuff, when we can release our prejudices, when we can release our fears, when we can release those things that we think would separate us, when we can release all that and just get to the bare bones stuff of oneness, then we have that space within us through which God can work, through which God can reach others, through which God can be itself, and that wholeness that is seeking to reveal itself can do that in and through and as each one of us. This is how we have peace on earth. This is how we show up in oneness. This is how we have love on earth. This is how we have God expressing on earth through our service, through our willingness to serve, through our willingness to be service. And when we are willing to be service, we're willing to be that place and that space through which God works. And so I'm inviting each of you today to really look at being in service, not doing in service. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Be in service. How can I be of service today? How can I be in service today? How can I be service today? How can I be service today? And these are the questions for us to ask ourselves as we go through this time. We still have a way to go. We're still in the desert. We're still coming through the desert. We're still being guided and directed and shown the way always. We're still being led. We're still being in this place of the not know. We don't know where our next step is. We don't know where our next place is. And for those of us in CLF community who've been coming to church on Sundays at the property on 7th Street, that property won't be here much longer. The property won't be here much longer. We're in escrow now. Escrow closes on March 30th, the end of this month. We will be out of that property by April 6th. Where do we go from here? God knows. I don't. And I know that we are guided and directed every step of the way. God already knows what it wants to look like as CLF. God already knows how it wants to show up as CLF. And all we need to do is open our hearts and open our minds and open our entire being so that we can be used as that vehicle through which God works to take us on to our next place, to take us on to our next place. And so that's what service is all about, being willing to open our hearts, being willing to be that vehicle, being willing to step up and be service, be that place and space through which God guides, be that place and space through which God leads, be that place and space through which the divine intelligence that knows everything already knows how it wants to be, where it wants to be, and all that. And so rather than us getting caught up in, oh my God, what are we going to do next? Oh, where are we going to be? Oh, what are we going to do? I don't know. I don't know, but I know where we are right now. I know where we are right now. And so what I'm inviting all of us to do is to, as I always say, do what is before you to do. Be open, be available, be willing to just be where you are and allow that divine intelligence to guide us, to direct us, because that next place is waiting. That next place is right here. And so I just invite you to set your intention to serve. Set your intention to serve. Set your intention to serve, and in your daily lives, not just at CLF, not just someplace out there, but just set your intention to serve every step of the way, every situation in which you find yourself, whether it's interacting on Zoom, whether it's interacting in the grocery store or wherever. Just asking the question always, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can God use me in this moment? Those are the questions that we need to ask so that we can be service. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. Be service. Let's turn within in this moment. So just as we move into this place, in this space of knowing that there's but one power, there's but one presence, there's but one mind, there's but one life, there's but one intelligence, one breath, one activity. That one I choose to call God. That one is my very life. That one is the life of each of us here this day. That one is that within which we live and we move and we have our being, and it lives and moves and has its being in each of us. And it is always seeking expression in and through and as each of us. It expresses as each of us. And so just knowing this truth, I just speak the word for each of us this day. Just speak a word of open-heartedness, speak a word of service, speak a word of willingness, speak a word of wholeness for each of us this day. Knowing that all needs are met in each and every moment of each and every day. Knowing that whatever it is we need to know, that divine intelligence already knows. Knowing that that divine intelligence is already guiding us, always directing us, always showing us the way. Whatever it is that we need, whatever it is that we feel that we are in need of, that divine presence within us is always providing for each and every need that we have. It is showing up as whatever it is that we need, whether it is health, whether it is abundance, whether it is a place to live, whether it's perfect relationships, whatever it is we need, God shows up as that thing that we need. And so we can release all fear, we can release all doubt, we can release our anxiety, we can release anything that we feel that would separate us in any way, and just open our hearts and open our minds to the healing that is available to us, to the wholeness that is seeking to reveal itself in and through and as our very lives. I know that there's healing in the body temple for anyone who is needing healing in their body temples today. I know there's healing in the bodies of affairs and relationships. There's healing in our government. There's healing of any sense of separation from God, so that sense of separation from each other is healed. And we are moving forward in oneness, moving forward in unity, moving forward in God, knowing that God's in the midst of everything. And anything that is unlike it is dispelled, dissolved by this word that's being spoken right here and right now. And so I just Pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer this day. You may speak their names silently or loud, but you may speak them now. And so, for all those whose names are spoken here this day, I know that God is right where each of them is, blessing and keeping them. God, the comforter for anyone who is grieving today the loss of a loved one, the loss of health, any loss of any kind. God is in the midst of everything that's going on, every situation, every circumstance, every event. God is in the midst. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day, knowing that God is. God is. That's all we ever need to know. God is. And so I simply say, thank you, Father, Mother God. Thank you, Father, Mother God. Thank you, Father, Mother God, for everything. I know indeed that all is well, for I know indeed that all is God. And I simply allow it to be. And so it is.